Hey everyone, you're watching Conversations in Pop Culture, and I'm your host, Andrew Davis, and this episode is brought to you by my sponsor, my very own t-shirt, which is this sweet Gundam t-shirt that I have made. So go buy it. It's making fun of Taco Bell, Amuro Ray, Londo Bell, the most interesting man in the world, Fallout, and anything else you could potentially think of making fun of. It is available in 16 different colors, and it is a great way how to support this show, because all the proceeds from this t-shirt are actually going to make this show work. So please, if you're a fan of Gundam, you're a fan of humor, you're a fan of funny things that are not ultra offensive, that's the shirt you should buy. And I'm not going to bore everybody else with the rest of my sponsors, because I have with me professional wrestler and voice actor Erik Kimerer, and you voiced pretty much everything in the entire anime world. No, I'm joking. He's voiced Biscuit Griffin from Mobile Suit Gundam IBO. He's voiced Alibaba from Magi. He's voiced the Bow Hero from Rise of the Shield Hero, and several others. So welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, I am very excited because I love a bunch of stuff. I loved IBO. I love Rise of the Shield Hero. I love a bunch of stuff that you've been in, and you've been doing this for about 12 years, I want to say, around that number. And
yeah, that's accurate, actually. I haven't actually counted out myself yet, but oof.
And so I'm very curious how you got into voice acting, because you're not Gen 1, which is all like the 90s guys, and going into the 2000s, and you're sort of Gen 2 and Gen 3 voice acting, I feel, a little bit.
Yeah, I'm kind of the crossover of Gen 2, Gen 3, I guess you would call it. I haven't considered it that way, but essentially I got sakura. I'm from Seattle. I'm from Washington State, and up there when I was in high school, I got a newsletter from a local convention, SakuraCon, still going strong, probably the biggest Pacific Northwest convention for anime there is. And they had in their newsletter on the off season just kind of a bulletin board, and I caught an advertisement for a veteran Japanese voice actress, Rune Sasaki, who had moved to Seattle and was looking to teach people anime voice acting, and never even considered acting as a career at that point. I took a couple of electives of play production in high school just to get the art credit out of the way. I fell in love with it and stuck with it throughout, and inevitably majored in theater arts. So the acting bug bit, as they said. But yeah, she taught us the Japanese way of dubbing anime, which is actually different to the American way of dubbing anime, but more akin to the American way of recording prelay cartoons, Cartoon Network shows, and Nickelodeon shows. So it was really cool to be able to do that and learn from somebody who had been doing it for 20 years. She had been in Macross and Alf and Joe and all these really cool 80s shows. So we got to learn directly from her. And then after graduating college, I knew that by then, throughout high school and college, I had been taking these classes and knew this is what I wanted to do. So like I said, graduated with a theater arts degree and moved instantly down to California. In the summer after my graduation, I came down to Anime Expo and participated in the AX Idol competition that was sponsored by Bang Zoom, where they had a voiceover and singing competition side by side. And I had competed it a few years before, got into the finals in 2008, competed in 2000. No, got into the final. Yeah. 2008, I got into the finals. I competed in 2007. And then 2010, I actually won the competition and moved down and got a shot, a start with Bang Zoom out of that.
Yeah, so to even talk about that, because obviously there's been a few other people who have come out of that. Kira Buckland has definitely come out of that competition, and there's a few others. And it really is, I think...
The year she won actually was the first year I competed.
I mean, she's beyond talented. And I love every voice that she's in, and I think she does. And she was on my other show, the predecessor to this one, which is fusing together soon, guys. You heard it here first. In the next 18 months, there's going to be a fusion between the two shows, and then it's going to form a new Super Saiyan, but that's not the point. But all jokes aside, what was this like coming in? Because this was really a propeller in a lot of ways. When you win this competition and then you sort of get attention driven to you, and then I don't want to say you get a golden ticket, but you do get sort of a step up a little bit, I would imagine.
Yeah, you get a foot in the door, and it's up to you to bring your best and show up for the opportunity you're being given. So, the prize was a tour of Bang Zoom and a couple of classes with them under there. And I had already actually paid for the classes before I won them because they came up to Seattle at one point, and I was really interested in learning from Tony Oliver, and he's just been a great guy ever since. It's always knowledgeable, always helpful. But yeah, it gets you a class, it gets you a tour of the studio. But Bang Zoom had known of me prior to that, so this was just kind of the solidifier. They remembered me from previous competitions, from being in the finals, and even remembered my audition from the one I didn't get in. So they recognize, people who are passionate about this and returning and trying again and again, and really wanted to be a part of this, and they're very nurturing about that. So I was very fortunate to be able to be a part of that competition and get my start just through that, just getting a couple of roles from Bang Zoom afterwards, which, forgive the pun, accelerated to one of my first big roles in Excel World.
Yes. And some of those early roles, just so everyone knows what's in key.
There were some really interesting early roles. I was like Hamaguchi in Mahoromatic OVA. I think I was voice matching for Dave Wittenberg on that one because he wasn't returning. And then I did one of my only villains I've ever done, Inugami in Nura, Rise of the Yokai Clan, when that was with Tony, and I got to be really all out on that one.
He's still in a coma. I have to say.
Yeah. As far as we know. But my first actual on-air role, I don't even think it's credited, but I actually, before winning the competition, I was friends with Kira Buckland, so I came down to visit her every so often. And one summertime, I came down to really kind of scout the area right before I was planning on moving down here, just get a lay of the land. And Bang Zoom actually brought me in without competition credentials or anything, let me tour the studio, and then they threw me in for some walla on Moribito, which I can't remember the full title of it, but it was on Adult Swim. So I was in the background in this one scene, and that's actually my first official in the can voiceover line. I gotta find somewhere.
Crazy. And then obviously there's just some weird roles. Yeah, like a throwaway role in SAO as I think Ducker as well. And there's just like,
I wouldn't call him throwaway. I would actually say he's very pivotal in starting the whole PTSD train that Kirito is on. He's pretty pivotal in giving Kirito PTSD that lasts throughout the show. So I wouldn't say throwaway. Although because of that,
you're the fault of Kirito. So
yeah.
You're just giving Kirito an excuse here.
Yeah, but that being said, whenever I'm playing MMOs or tabletop games, my friends never let me play the rogue because of that scene. They don't want me to ducker it.
And so obviously, I mean, I'm a huge SAO fan. I love SAO. I love everything about the concept of SAO. I think it really is a beautiful, beautiful series. And I think it follows very well as a sequel to Dot Hack. But I'm an anime weeboo, and we don't have to get too deep into the history of anime. That's a different show that I do not run. So somebody else does a great job with that show, is all I'm going to say. But I do want to talk about Excel World, because that's kind of your first major lead. And I think that's the role that really started putting you on the map. And I'm going to get his name wrong, and I'm going to try. I think it's Haruyuki Arita, I want to say. And yep. Silver Crow guys. And I have pictures. So this will help. I got
this guy.
I got that too.
That's his video game avatar. I've got like 3 plushies of that right now, actually.
So how did this come about? Because obviously you're really new into the entire anime world. And this is a big show. Obviously, It's a lead. It has somewhat of a following, and it's kind of a big deal. And there are people who sort of work their ass off for years and don't get a lead role till 5, 6, 7 years in the game. And here you are, sort of, I don't want to say hop, jump, and a skip, but you're now in a very interesting spotlight position.
It was a very interesting spotlight position, yeah, because I was only doing just these episodic one-shot characters. I hadn't even done a character I don't think lasted an entire show. The longest that was lasted was Inugami for a few episodes. So I actually auditioned initially for the friend character. God, it's been so long since I've watched it. I can't even remember their names. The character
I'm
that
not
never...
much up on this. I'm in the middle.
Yeah,
of it, so.
yeah. I initially auditioned for the character that Lucian Dodge got, and put in the audition and thought it was fine. And they got back to me. Bang Zoom got back to me a couple of days later saying, "Hey, you know, actually, we also want to hear you read for this character, and we want you to actually come into the studio to read for it." So they had me. This was my first time going into studio for audition. They had me in for Haruyuki. And I remember, interesting story about that. I pulled into the parking lot of Bang Zoom Studios, and right next to the general reserved for talent, there was a reservation next to it saying reserved for C. O'Brien. I'm like, C. O'Brien? Who could that be? I've never heard, that voice actor in this industry or before. Sure enough, I walk into the lobby and Conan O'Brien walks out with like they were doing some sort of bit that inevitably aired on Conan O'Brien, where they went into the studio and were kind of joke dubbing. And one of the scenes they recorded was from a show called Return of the Pearl Princess, a live action Chinese show that we dubbed and that I was in. So it was this weird kind of like, okay, welcome to Hollywood, I guess. But yeah, I auditioned for that and then got it later. And my roommate, Sarah, got Nico. And she's still my roommate. She was my roommate back then. She's still my roommate to this day. So it was our first time getting to work together. And that was just so much fun.
Yeah, and then even going further into this, because obviously now you're doing this, obviously you have, and in voice acting, and I think at the time, you don't really know how long a series is going to last. It could last 12 episodes, it could last 24 episodes. But obviously, what was this like? Because, he has a very interesting arc where he goes from being, a low self-esteem fat kid, for lack of a better word. And I know it's not politically correct, everybody, but and he kind of comes into the idea of being a badass to some degree in both the real world and in the video game in a lot of ways. And so what was this like? Because he has a very interesting character arc. And it's such a cool story because it's kind of nice. And people can actually resonate with this character in a lot of ways too.
I was excited for the most part because, one of my favorite books of all time is The Hero with a Thousand Faces by Joseph Campbell, kind of outlining the monomyth that we all know through Simba, Luke Skywalker, Hercules. They all follow the same beats of getting the mythical weapon, being trained by the older person. So there's this hero's journey that is prevalent throughout, and Hero with a Thousand Faces really lays it out. So to see Haruyuki, I knew that this was what it was going to be. It was going to be the hero's journey, the call to action, refusal of the call, the crossing of the first threshold, the mythical weapon. I was ecstatic to be able to present this story finally, like have a chance to do it. And we looked at Haruyuki, the director, and I, and he's very wimpy to begin with. I mean, I'm not going to mince words. He's a wimp. So we wanted it to be at least endearing in a way, and we didn't want it to be off-putting and just like overly whiny. And sure enough, when the first few episodes came out, they aired on this streaming service that no longer exists called Neon Alley, and that's where the dubs first aired. And the reaction was good. People liked the dub, but I heard a lot of people saying, "Oh, he's too whiny. He sounds just like Shinji from Neon Genesis Evangelion." and even some people on Tumblr were like, "Oh, Erik Kimerer. Nice job, Spike Spencer. We know that's you using a pseudonym." Because I wasn't even known at that point. So they thought it was actually Shinji voicing another really wimpy character.
So to even go into that too, because obviously, I mean, he has, Haruki has a very, very interesting character development arc where he
Mhm.
kind of does sound whiny. He has low self-confidence, but as you get into episodes 5, 6, 7, 8, and even going further and towards the end of the entire series, he's now having more self-confidence. His avatar is obviously gaining more power. He's making more decisions. He's sort of gaining respect of a lot of people. And what is that like? Because not every character gets that in anime. And obviously, it's kind of a cool thing. And I felt that you sort of got to take the car out into, third and fourth gear a little bit. And you laugh about it, but it's kind of true, I think.
Oh, no, I mean, it not just third and fourth gear, but like fifth gear. Because I remember as Haruyuki, I had to drop an F-bomb sometime later on when he was going completely berserk. So the gears shifted heavily with him. And like I said, we knew we wanted to start him wimpy, but we didn't want him. We knew we wanted to go on this journey with him and this arc of him gaining more confidence. And the thing is that he's not a completely hopeless case. He's got his confidence in his video games. He's got his worlds that he retreats to where he is much more confident in. And when he's able to merge that, like find a community that allows him to have both, that's where he starts coming into his own. It's really fun. And I really kind of dig this as I say the show is, not many people say it this way, it's a Sentai show. It's the different colors and the different powers and like the transformations and everything. I see this as kind of a digital Power Rangers kind of thing going on.
So I viewed it very differently, where I viewed it as a shonen that became a seinen, where it started to start as a shonen, and then it became very adult and slowly became adult and sort of aged into, I felt, a little bit of an older age. And as you go through it, and that's kind of, I mean, look, I'm in the middle of the show, so I'm on episode 8. So I'm not saying how I know exactly how it ends or anything of that nature, but that's what I've sort of got, where I feel that from episode 3 to episode 8, you get that progression, and I just think it's brilliant. And then even going further into this, you have to also do the movie too, which is cool.
Mm-hmm.
And that's nice as well, because the anime has a good ending, but I feel the movie does a really, really good job of adding a little bit more to it.
The movie was a really interesting experiment because half of it is recap from the anime and half of it is new material. But even though they recap the anime, they jump ahead in time, because I think in the anime we only got through volume 4 or 6 of the light novel source material in terms of what was adapted for the first season. And then the movie shows all that in the first half and then jumps to light novel 23 or 24 with all these new characters that have been introduced in between. And since we never got a second season, we're just like, who's that? And the DVD case even had to come with a timeline, like a little insert timeline to tell you what is going on here.
And it's kind of cool because obviously the movie came out in 2016. And so obviously we're talking 3-4 years later, which is always nice too.
It's nice, but it's nerve-wracking to go into the booth 3 years later, 3 years older, and go, can I still do this voice? Because
and then
he was really up here. He was really, high-pitched and kind of wimpy, and yeah. it's one I'm just like, I know I'm not going to be able to do that forever. So get that second season out now, guys, please.
And then even going further into your career a little bit, because obviously this wasn't the only thing that was going on. No. Obviously, Toradora was going on around this time too, as Ryuji. I'm going to get the name wrong.
Yeah, Ryuji.
I gave up a long time ago. I just gave up.
Well, that was an interesting 1-2-3 punch for my career, because it was around the very end of recording for Excel World. I got the audition for Magi, and I got the audition for Alibaba. Yep, there he is. And I managed to land the role, and I got the email that I was given the role on the very last session of Excel World. And it was really weird and serendipitous because Haruyuki and Alibaba share the same Japanese voice actor as well, Yuki Kaji. And we made a joke about that, me and the casting director, and then she auto-cast me in another Yuki Kaji role for Blood Lad. and then auditioned me for another Yuki Kaji role in One Punch Man, and put me in another Yuki Kaji role. So I've had 6 of his roles right now as an in-joke between me and the casting director.
It's funny you mention that, because you've been on a bunch of shows that Mari Okada has been running and wrote, and she's a monster. She's like a little devil, where you either love her work or you hate her work. I mean, and I think you've been on 4 or 5 shows that she sort of either ran, or she's written the script for, or she's the showrunner on. And it's
I need to cross-check that. I actually haven't done that research before, but that does sound about right. But yeah, no, when it came to Toradora, I auditioned for that right around the same time as Magi. And I remember the casting director, before I got the email from Magi even, coming up to me and goes, "Is your schedule clear? Because you're about to be very busy." And I'm just like, "Oh, I got one of the roles." And when I got both of the roles, I got Ryuji especially, I was like, "Are you sure you know what you're doing with me?" Because especially with Ryuji, I auditioned for Takasu, and that was the character I thought I was going to get, the nerdy glasses, more higher pitched character. And Ryuji was, in Japanese, a little bit more deeper than anything I had ever done before. So when they gave it to me, I'm just like, you sent this to the right person, right? But
so to even talk about that, because Ryuji is a very tempered character. He's very calm. He's not a pushover, I want to say, but he's definitely quieter, I feel. And it's also, Toradora is very different than Excel World, and it's very different than Magi, where it's a romantic comedy. It's well done in a lot of ways. In that regard, I thoroughly enjoyed my run in Toradora and watching it, because I thought it was well played between, obviously, the 2 main characters. And for those who don't know, they both like 2 different people, and they're trying to help each other out. And it's a very classic, storyline as far as things that have been done. And then they sort of fall in love, and I think they do wind up getting together at the end, from my recollection. But sorry, spoiler alert, in case you know.
Well, if you know anything about the show, you know that the spoiler's in the title itself already. So
I'm just saving everybody time here. But what was this like? Because all of a sudden you're going from a very action-driven, very high-paced, colorful show to a romantic comedy, and then when we go into Magi, you're going right back into action, and it's kind of a weird position, I would imagine, as an actor, where it's like you're not changing gears, you're changing cars.
Yeah. You're going from a motorcycle to a pickup truck. Yeah, because I was recording at sometimes both shows simultaneously, and Toradora was very, very different in the sense that it took a lot longer to record. For a lot of the more action shows with a lot of more characters in them, you're switching between scenes and different groups of characters. It can take probably 2 to 4 hours per episode to record for a single person. For Toradora, we were upwards to 4 to 6 hours per episode, because it was just dialogue heavy. There wasn't any kind of action to break up the dialogue. And 60%, if not more, probably 75% of the dialogue was shared by the 2 main characters, me and Cassandra. So we were in the booth for long periods of time, really honing, and we were able to really kind of hone in on these characters a lot more that way, just kind of talk the decisions out with the director, and because it was kind of a little slower pace trying to really bring this to life. This was Niz's first dub anime, and there was a lot of pressure on that, especially for a show that was out at that point for 3 years and had a huge fan base. At that point, it still had people every year on Reddit doing a rewatch on the Toradora or the anime subreddits.
So to even talk about that, because I think this is something that certain people understand in the anime community and certain people don't, is that there's a lot of pressure if you're a director, you're a scriptwriter, you're a voice actor, and that you could fuck it up. I mean, you've seen bad dubs, I've seen bad dubs, and it can ruin a show. I mean, I don't know, how extensively you watch anime, but I watch about 500 to 700 episodes of anime a year. And I watch a lot of wrestling too. I gave up sleep a long time ago.
Yeah.
But the IWTV is like my favorite thing, along with Crunchyroll. But I have actually turned off English dubs and watched the Japanese dub because the English dub was rough. And so I don't know, and I think that's a real issue where an English voice actor can ruin a show very easily. A Japanese voice actor can also ruin a show,
Yeah.
in Japan. And so I've watched, I'm in the middle of watching Panty and Stocking with Garter Belt, and I actually don't like the Japanese dub. I think the English dub is better, and I think it's actually more on point and more funnier, if that's even a word there. But what is that like for you? Because you don't want to be known as the guy that screwed it up. And
Oh,
I
well.
hate to say it, but us anime fans, we're mean. To be very nice, we're mean, and we'll let you know.
Yeah, I mean, I just have to have faith in the process and the people that I'm working with because, um, I mean, I can always have a reason for why something was done this way or that way, and I get a lot of. When I did an AMA a while back, people were asking me about Toradora. Why did they write it to have so many colloquialisms? He's saying like hide much or just a lot of modern day colloquialisms, but I didn't see the problem with it myself as an anime fan. I thought it fit perfectly, and I'd always had kind of a reason for it. So it's all subjective. I don't. I don't ever want to be the one to ruin a show, so I'm always putting my best foot forward in it. But it is a huge collaborative process, and I think people are kind of aware and wary of the disconnect when it comes to dubbing anime into English as opposed to what they do in Japan, where they have a lot more collaboration. They have table reads, they have the actors working together. So ours is a little more disjointed, but throughout the times, we've been able to really hone the skills of writing, adapting, and also open up the communications with the clients that we're licensing the stuff from to be able to get any questions answered. And sometimes I'll have the Japanese clients on Skype in the booth with me. Like they'll be on a Skype call so they can kind of check us on any questions we have about, well, should this line be said this way? Does this...
So did you also feel though that maybe in America, and I mean you're a wrestling fan, you're a wrestler, and obviously a wrestling fan. I think it's very hard if you're a wrestler not to be a wrestling fan. I'm sure it can be done. I'm sure it can be.
We're
done.
the ultimate marks. We're the ultimate marks.
Honestly. So, but even going into wrestling a little bit, where I think that there is, unless you're in the industry, unless because obviously I interview a lot of voice actors, I interview a lot of wrestlers, that I think sometimes fans don't understand the business. I think they don't want to take the time to understand the business. And I think it's easy sometimes for people to criticize, say, hey, look, I'm an anime fan, but I don't want to know how an anime dub actually gets done and where it goes from ADR to a script writer to translating it over to what the director knows and all that stuff, and actually how the whole process knows. And I think that's also part of the problem sometimes is I've been doing this for over 10 years, interviewing voice actors and a lot of people. So I have a somewhat good idea of what actually takes place inside an anime studio, as much as I can know as an outsider. But I think somebody who says, hey, look, I just like watching, Toradora. I don't really care how it got dubbed, and then they hate the dub. I think so. Do you think that's part of the problem? Why, people sometimes are quick to criticize?
I think I can be part of the problem. The most common criticism I hear, and I have a hard time arguing against this one, is that when you watch the Japanese subtitled version, you're getting the original, not just the original cast, but like the original intent. The director of the show is there and not by proxy across the seas. Everybody is there collaborating on this in the moment all together, and I kind of get that. My answer, you were talking about how you found the English dub of Panty and Stocking to be funnier, and that maybe just because it's, we can get the timing and the humor of it a lot easier when we're hearing it outright. We don't have to read it and then kind of process it. It's much easier that way.
With Panty and Stocking with Garter Belt, I think also the American version is Americanized and is making fun of American television. I think the Japanese would not make fun of American television the same way. And I think the fact that, they're playing Good Vibrations in the first, they're playing a small rip from that. And if you know anything about it, it's brilliant. Or like Death Race. They made a reference to Death Race. I mean, that's like a B movie in America from the late 80s, early 90s. And that's like, or they just like, I'm on episode 3, and obviously they're making fun of a lot of stuff. So that's how I view it. But that you're not in that show. So I want to talk about that show.
I watched it, though. I loved it. I thought it was fun. But yeah, no, in my counter to the argument of, well, it's not the original cast. Well, yeah, we may not be the original cast. We're not trying to copy the original cast. We're never trying to just copy something. We're bringing our own acting techniques and tools that we've learned throughout the years to be able to bring this character to life. Because if we're just mimicking it, it's not acting, it's lying. And so we have to rely on, sometimes our choice for this one line may not be the exact choice as the Japanese counterpart, but we're still trying to get the story moving and keep the same emotional resonance, the same, so if you're not seeing the original, you're not hearing the original Japanese cast, I'm sorry. But if you go to see a play, you're probably not seeing the original cast there too. I doubt you're ever going to get a chance to see the original cast of Hamlet. So they are kind of all long dead. So.
Terrible. That's terrible.
Well, I mean, it's something that does kind of get me sometimes when they're like, oh, it's not the original cast, so it's not as good. And it's like, but we're not trying to be the original cast. We're trying to be our own cast, and we're trying to do our own thing, like we
can't all be Ric Flair. Come on.
No. Not everyone wants to be Ric Flair nowadays.
Yeah. You can't all be Jay Lethal. Come on.
Oh, yeah. There we go. Jay Lethal's awesome.
I love Jay Lethal. And then obviously I do want to talk about him because Alibaba is a fun character. I enjoyed the first season of Magi. I enjoyed the fact that he gets a major power upgrade in that entire series. I mean, like a legitimate one. Like he goes from being a somewhat badass character to being like an ultra badass character. And what is this like? Because this is your third major role in anime. And I think Magi did not get enough credit for what it did. Because I thoroughly enjoyed it. This was like right around the time I was coming into Crunchyroll. I think this is like my 6th or 7th series that I watched on Crunchyroll. And I'm like, man, this is some good shit.
Well, thank you. Yeah, no, I really wanted a third season to this. And it was really cool to be able to, this was, the first show I did that actually got a second season. I wasn't expecting that because we just got through the first one. And as you said earlier, you don't know how long these things are going to run. Typically, a lot of anime will run concurrent with the source material because they're trying to promote each other. The anime is trying to promote people to go buy the source material as it's still fresh and still being circulated. Magi got through its second season, which was, again, I got to go deeper into Alibaba with that, with a lot more of his journey and his awakening his kingliness. Essentially, it was really fun for me. But then it ended, and we were hoping for a third season, and the manga ended, and since then I still see people on Reddit saying, when's Magi season 3 going to happen? And I'm hopeful without being optimistic about it.
Yeah, and obviously I'm going to hold the question that I'm curious about until after I show this other character. And this is a fun character.
Look at that.
I'm going to preface this, and I'm also going to throw up another character just to prove a point here. There's this character also.
I was like, I knew exactly what it was.
And it's another. So I just want to make this crystal clear. These are guys. I just want to make that crystal clear, everybody. I need to make it crystal clear. It's okay to be confused. It took me a minute too. Okay.
Well, I mean, debatable if they're guys. I mean, well, no, I think I'm trying to go through this whole story because at the first few seasons, I saw him as a doll. He was a homunculus. Like he was.
Growlithe is androgynous.
Androgynous, yes.
Thank you. Not the galaxy, but
I thought Gother was created, but and I think Gother is created as kind of a homunculus or a doll or a living doll or something like that. But I'm suspecting that wasn't always the case. I haven't read all the manga, so but Fisheye is the same thing. Fisheye is a homunculus, so Fisheye, I don't know if Fisheye's got a gender.
Fisheye, I think, is considered to be a male. I know.
It goes by male pronouns, and
yes.
Well, did they ever
in the Viz dub? Fisheye goes by male pronouns.
In the Viz dub, still goes by male pronouns, and refers to their brothers, but at the same time, tries to pass as a woman a lot of the times,
and also acts
very much so. Yeah.
So
that was an interesting challenge.
To go into this character though, and we're gonna get the fish on a little bit. 7 Deadly Sins. I mean, that's in a beyond popular anime. And I think there's been like 4 or 5 seasons of that, possibly more.
Yep.
It was on Netflix, which was a big deal. I think it was one of the Netflix's first like exclusive animes. And what is that like? Because, it's a different game now, I feel, with anime. And obviously, I mean, it's changed where you have 4 or 5 major US players. And then when you come over to Netflix has over 100 million people all over the world who basically they have customers too. And, it's a huge platform. Not everybody's there for anime, but they could potentially be there for anime. And so what is that like for you? Because I think it's a game changer. And I just had Megan Holland's head on, and she's in the new Pokemon on Netflix. And I think it is very much a game changer when you're like, I'm a major character in a Netflix exclusive anime show. So I don't know how that sort of fits into your world per se, and even what that means for you. But I would imagine it's a very cool place to be per se.
It was, and this was a really interesting product for it because it was one of Netflix's first. Oddly enough, it was one of their first exclusively airing animes, but it wasn't one of their first licensed animes. It was actually licensed and then like co-licensed by Netflix and somebody else. So afterwards, Netflix would start licensing their own under their own umbrella. So with 7 Deadly Sins, we knew it was going to Netflix. I hadn't heard anything about it at the time I was auditioning for it, and I auditioned for Meliodas, which was another Yuki Kaji role. So that was the one that Bryce got out on me, and he also has another Yuki Kaji role in Eren Yeager. So I think he and I may go into competition with that at some point. But yeah, I auditioned for this, and I was thinking, this looks fun. This looks like it's going to be cool, and I'm really happy it's going to go on Netflix. It's going to get some good exposure there. And I remember at that point, I had recorded a bunch of shows. I was already done with Excel World, Magi, Toradora. And every single one of them, I was thinking, this may get me, to a much higher plane of existence or something. But even then, I found my name wasn't really known. I mean, there were still fans of the shows, absolutely. But I still wasn't really good about marketing myself out there. And when it came to 7 Deadly Sins, I found when I was going to conventions afterwards, people were more familiar with that than any of my other roles, probably mostly because it was on Netflix and just so widely accessible. I mean, anybody who has Netflix, like you said, is not going to be there exclusively for anime, but if there's going to be an anime, if they like anime and they have Netflix, I mean, I can guarantee there are more non-anime fans that have Netflix. Well, I don't know. I can't make any guarantees. Sorry, I'm speaking out my butt right now. But what I'm saying is that it would have a much wider audience than just people going to the anime-specific services. They would see this, even if they're not an anime fan, maybe become an anime fan off of it, or even if they weren't aware of it, it's there. It's on Netflix's homepage, and you've got the service, so why not look at it? And sure enough, like I got more cosplayers, more people coming up to me in conventions for that than any other show I had done at that point. And even still to this day, I get a lot more people coming up to me for Gother.
Because isn't it the idea that also people come into things on Netflix where that thing is staying on Netflix? Once Netflix licensed something, and I don't know exactly how it all works, whether Netflix has ownership or they have a big term lease on it, whatever it is, I don't know the whole inner workings of the business, and I'm not going to make a speculation on that, but it's there for a while. And Netflix is always adding other content. And anytime you add new content into an already existing library, a lot of other things have the potential. And also, like, I just started watching Seven Deadly Sins. You know, the show is 8-9 years old at this point, and I'm now just starting to get into it, which means I'm a new fan to it. So I don't know what your voice sounds like with this character.
It's going to be a bit. It's going to be like,
but
episode 7 or so.
The point is that you get what I'm saying, and so it's
Yeah.
kind of a weird thing. And I guess my question out of this is that because it's Netflix and they have all this stuff, and then they brought in Cowboy Bebop, and then now they're bringing in One Piece as a live action, all that stuff sort of leads downhill, I feel. Into all this anime stuff now.
Yeah, I mean, it's... Again, I don't really know the inner workings myself of the license. As the actor, I'm not privy to what's going on with a lot of the negotiations or behind the scenes stuff. So again, with Seven Deadly Sins, I know it wasn't licensed exclusively by Netflix. It was licensed in partnership with Netflix. And then they continued to start licensing things under their own umbrella.
And then they also brought in a bunch of other stuff too. Like they have a bunch of stuff that is not theirs. So they have like 10 seasons of One Piece. So now if you're a One Piece fan, you might come to Netflix and then it's there. And that's what I think is really kind of why a lot of attention's been brought to it, and why it's so interesting, because it's kind of like if you have 5 shows that Netflix either licensed or co-licensed on Netflix, and then you got a show that brings everybody to that, well, you're going to stay there and watch everything else.
Yeah, absolutely. And Netflix can like you said, it can revitalize anything. I think Netflix is pretty much the reason why Schitt's Creek lasted as long as it did, because when it was put on, it got a huge revitalization of eyes on it. So it's a huge platform with a lot of influence.
I'm very happy today with Netflix. That's all I'm going to say. They're up $25 today.
I still need to.
I have shares of Netflix, so there you go. They only lost 970,000 subscribers in Q2 when people thought they were going to lose 2 million. That's a big miscalc. Everybody thought they were going to lose 2 million, and they lost half. They lost less than half of that. So
I still got my subscription. I still need to get through Stranger Things season 4. I'm really curious what the because I also have Paramount Plus, and I want to watch that new South Park Streaming Wars special just to see what their take is on all this.
Paramount Plus has one show. The only show that matters is Knuckles. Coming. I'm telling you.
Oh no, I watched The Offer on it. I like that. I'm a huge Godfather fan, so
I'm telling you, the Knuckles show is going to blow everybody out of the water. It's going to be the greatest thing ever. It's going to be so good, everybody. But I digress on that front. Obviously, I do want to dive into some other stuff, and I'm actually very curious because this is like your 4th really big role in a very short amount of time. And I am curious, and obviously we're going to talk about IBO and Demon Slayers and some Sailor Moon in a second here and some Gundam Divers. But why do you think that you've had all of these massive roles? Because you don't have 400, 500, 600 roles. You know, I'm going to throw out some other people's names out there. You know, Jeff Nimoy is a good example. Megan Holland, who I just had on. You know, I've had a few others. You know, Dorothy Fawn, who's been around forever. Steve Staley was just on. And those people have had a lot of roles. And big and small roles. You've had, I think, like less than 50, I want to say.
Probably.
And I think either 70 or 80% of them are lead roles or major supporting character roles. And so I'm really curious because I researched you and I was very puzzled by that. I'm like, how the hell am I supposed to write this interview? Like every role is a major role. Like,
well, no, I mean, yeah, I'm looking at my own IMDb right now. Forgive the narcissism, but I'm just trying to get a picture of my, like a snapshot of what I've done over the past 10 years.
I mean, it's 12 years and you have like 70 to 80% of all your roles are like major roles, and it's so weird.
I think a lot of them weird. A lot of them become that way. I mean, I'm going to give a lot of a lot of credence to just my luck of genetics of just having the voice that I do, because it's a very like I'm in my 30s right now, and I can still sound pretty young, and also, like I can sound like teenager, adult kind of stuff like that. And anime is rife with them, so I consider a lot of luck on that. And again, I really like the hero's journey, so maybe that's what's come through in my auditions. I really can't tell what it has been, because I haven't been the decision maker on a lot of this. I audition for as much as I can, and it's the casting directors or the clients that make the final decision. If it were up to me, I'd get everything I ever auditioned for. But then you probably would hear me ruin a bunch of dubs, because I would be taking a lot of roles that probably would be a lot better suited for other people. So yeah, I can't say why that has been the case. I can say it's been a fun ride, and I've been very, very grateful for it, and that I've been able to get these opportunities to carry these stories and these characters. And I always want to do that. I always want to have a character that's going to stick around for longer than an episode, and that I can really sink my teeth into from one moment to the next, from one scene to the next.
Yeah, and there's a great character that puts us right there, and that's IBO Biscuit, because IBO Biscuit is this guy, for those who are interested. He's very much a strategic guy. This is a great thing. I saw the greatest tweet on this. Oh no, I won't be killed to prove the point of loss that war causes.
Oh my God. I got to tell you, when I went into the studio for that character, for Biscuit, the very first session I went in for, because I auditioned for Orga and Mikazuki, and then they gave me Biscuit afterwards. So I go in, I take a look at the character design. It's my first time seeing it. And Nobuo, one of the producers of Sunrise Studios, who produces all the Gundam shows, he was there with the director. And I looked at him in the eye when I looked at this character. I was like, so I'm the fat, friendly technician of a dark Gundam series who's trying to put his two sisters through school. How many episodes do I last? And he laughed. He broke down. He didn't tell me. But he just kind of gave me a knowing wink. I was like, how many episodes am I going to last? Seriously. I was surprised. But sure enough, spoilers, the casting director comes up to me one time in the middle, like when we're in the middle of recording this, and the last episode just released a day before, G comes up to me and goes, so did you watch the last episode? I was like, no. She's like, oh, and just walks away.
Let's ruin everything for everybody just to get it out.
Yeah.
Biscuit gets killed, to put it nicely, and so does everybody else.
Gundam IBO is one of those like Gundam Wing type shows where you're in for despair. It is not a happy show.
It is the most brutal Gundam show ever.
Mm-hmm.
It really puts Gundam Zeta to shame. It seriously puts the last 5 episodes of Gundam Zeta to shame. It puts it to shame. I don't know. Have you seen the last 5 episodes of Gundam Zeta?
I have not, actually.
Okay, watch IBO and then watch the last 5 episodes of Gundam Zeta. You don't need to know anything that's going on. Basically, okay. Tomino, who was the director and pretty much got created Gundam, probably was having a bad month, right? During the last 5 episodes of Zeta, because legitimately so many people die in the last 5 episodes. And then IBO, I think IBO.
So he Evangelion did. He Ano did.
Yeah, except he killed people. Some people deserved to die and others did not.
We got a question here, actually, I just noticed. For people interested in moving to cities that have dubbing, what advice would you give them? What should they prepare for? Well, right now, there's really only 2 cities to move to for dubbing. There are 3. There's California, Los Angeles, there's Dallas, Texas, and there's New York City. A lot of dubbing, a lot of anime is going to Texas right now, especially with the Crunchyroll Funimation merger owned by Sony. So they've really been trying to get a lot of stuff back in-house. We were working remotely a lot during COVID, but the nature of anime dubbing to picture, really is much better suited for an in-person environment to be actually in the studio. So it's hard for LA actors to get over to Texas if they're going to be doing it entirely in studio. But if they're going to keep it a hybrid thing with remote open, we'll still get the opportunity for that. LA is a really big hub. We've got Bang Zoom, Studiopolis, VSI, a bunch of studios out here that do dubbing. And they do more than just anime dubbing, live action, things like that. What you should prepare for, though, is these are, depending on which city you go to, New York or LA, very expensive. So prepare a few months living expenses and be ready to find a job that can kind of make ends meet, because voiceover ebbs and flows. I still struggle to pay bills with voiceover alone. I'm doing a lot of gig work to try and make ends meet, but be prepared to try and make your own ends meet.
Also, not to interject.
No. Yeah.
There are a lot of people who they might have a part-time job, or what they do is they do training videos. They might do commercial work, and there's a lot of stuff that happens. Also, if you can, a lot of people might be doing script writing if you get into that. And so all of a sudden, there's a lot of stuff that people do that's not so-called, I guess, because there's a lot of stuff that has to get done in this that's not the actual voice work, if that makes any sense. And I don't think I'm speaking out of turn with that.
No. Actually, that's a lot of...
does a lot of training videos, and he's, in case you don't know, he's Rainer from Attack on Titan. He voices Rainer. So he does a lot of stuff. He also does Stain from My Hero. He was on my other show, and he was talking about this. So I think it's safe to say a bunch of these people also might be doing podcast stuff. They might be doing podcasts for major companies.
Streaming, wrestling, anything we can there. But yeah, no, a lot of actors have turned to script adaptation, and there's a lot of work for that available now, because there's a lot more anime being released than ever before. I think every season, just for 3 months, they're releasing more anime than the first 5 years of my career put together. I'm seeing so much. The studios are pumping out productions, and that means that there's going to be a lot more work for script adaptation and all these other places that really need to happen to make this kind of industry function. So, just be prepared to find something else while you're putting in the numbers game, because you're going to have to audition 100 times to get one role.
It's also, I'm also going to throw something else out. Be wary of scams. I forget who has a book. There's a voice actor.
There's a couple of books. There's James Alberger, and then there's Yuri Lowenthal and Tara Platt have one out. Both of those are really good books.
And then there's another actress, and I forget her name, but she has a book out that's not voice acting, but it's all about how to avoid scams in the entire acting game. And so because there are things out there on their sites that say, hey, pay me $100 and I'm going to get you out there. And they're really looking, and they might charge you $100, and they're not going to help you much. And so that's the other thing too that you have to be wary of, is you got to be wary of certain people who could help you. I'm not going to say who publicly, but if you're in the know and you go through a certain amount of people on my show, there's a common thread of about 6 people who have been on my shows in the last 3 years. And those 6 people have one person in common. And so I'm not going to say who it is. That is over-promising, for lack of a better word. But I'm not going to incriminate anybody. I'm not going to incriminate anybody.
Right.
I'm not going to say which 6 people either.
Do your research, obviously, on anybody you're connected with. VoiceOverResourceGuide.net is a great place to learn where some reputable classes, reputable resources are, such as demo production and casting agencies and stuff like that.
So obviously I want to get back to Biscuit, because Biscuit gets killed, okay? And
becomes a jelly covered biscuit.
Yes, exactly. It's blood flavor. Terrible. But I also feel that with IBO, there are certain deaths that are massive turning points in that series. And Biscuit is one of them. There's another one.
As we were talking about with Zeta, like you were mentioning with Zeta, some of them unnecessary. Some of them didn't deserve it.
I mean, you can make the argument whether Biscuit deserved it or not, but that's not the point. But one of the things is that I think Biscuit's a massive turning point, and then there's a few other characters when they die are massive turning points. And so, what is this like for you? Because while you don't necessarily last, you do last for a pretty long time in the series,
I
and
last, yeah,
pretty influential, man. His
pretty
death.
well through the first episode, for the first season, and I thought like I didn't know how impactful it was going to be when it was going to happen. I knew it was going to happen. I just didn't know what was going to happen. I just get that out there. But it was in the middle or near the end of the first season, and as anime usually does, is in the middle of the season they'll switch up the opening and ending tracks sometimes. After 13 episodes or after a bigger turning point, they'll change the end music, the credits music for and the opening music. So I was disappointed about that halfway through of IBO because Orphans no Namida is one of my favorite anime endings ever. I think it is a banger song. And I was disappointed when it went away. So we're recording the Biscuit death scene, and it's very emotional, and I'm getting emotional. And then like I try and keep it contained because you don't really want to ugly cry in the studio. You get kind of gunked up when you're doing that kind of thing. You still want to have some dictation. But then I hear the opening notes of Orphans no Namida play after he passes. It had been gone from the show for a couple of episodes, and then they brought it back for him. And I'm just like, oh, why you gotta do this to me? So I knew at that point, okay, this is something, you know.
Because I mean, you know, I'm the first person to say that like, you sort of knew it was coming, and but also it wasn't the worst thing in the world either, especially with the way season 2 went, where everybody gets off.
Yeah.
and I mean everybody, like from the different 7 families, people getting killed, from the turbines, people getting killed. I mean, it's a bloodbath, and it's not. I mean, when it happened,
Biscuit was just an hors d'oeuvre. He was the appetizer. Have a plate of biscuits, you're gonna get a plate of meat later.
But I think the reason why I bring this up is that it's not that his death wasn't significant, but it also wasn't like, oh man, I feel like we're being singled out. I mean, the entire show of IBO is really the entire fight for freedom and the cost it is, and how a whole sector and a whole unit is basically dying for this freedom, which is ludicrous if you think about it on a symbolic level. And what is that like for you? Because you're in a Gundam show. You're in a Gundam show that is not like any other Gundam show that's ever been out there before. And people hate Mario Okada's work. They hate her work or they love her work. And you either love IBO or you hate it. You cannot be neutral on IBO. Nobody has ever said, I'm neutral on IBO.
Yeah, no, I've never heard that. I've only heard
people say this is the worst Gundam ever, or this is the greatest thing ever. It's one or the other. And what is that like for you as a voice actor to have such strong opinions of a show that you're a part of? Because kind of isn't that what you want, I would imagine?
Yeah, I mean, I love Gundam IBO mostly because I grew up watching Gundam Wing on Toonami. So it had much more of that feel to it, I think. I know I've watched a lot of Gundams, but what gets to me is that there's the universal canon, the UC, that carries over from one Gundam show to the next. And then you have these side shows like IBO and Wing, which are not part of the UC, but just their own little standalone stories. So I felt really happy being able to jump in on that and like have a complete story in itself in this universe. I don't know if that's where a lot of the criticism came from. I don't know if it was just the story aspect of it.
I don't think it was that. I don't think it was that. I think what it was is that I think the extremity of IBO,
the tone of it.
Also, the idea that you're dealing with children soldiers, and Double O dealt slightly with it, but it didn't deal with it the same way IBO dealt with it.
But when do you get anime like that nowadays? I mean, even the ones that that are really, really dark. Like it's either you get really, really grim dark or you get really happy, fluffy. And there's really rarely kind of I'm not even looking for a balance, but just like something more in the middle of that spectrum. And I felt Gundam was kind of a good it didn't have a lot of light moments to it, but it wasn't so absolutely grim dark, like everything was hopeless. They had hope in there. And that's a story that I always love being a part of, one that doesn't have to be so tropic and outlandishly anime, but this is what I grew up on. This is what anime can do, is these kind of adult storytelling in an outlandish world. But nowadays I'm seeing a lot of, fluff pieces or
I also think,
fan service.
I'm 29, and not to get too political, but I think the generation, I grew up watching Gundam when I was 7, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I grew up watching things. My parents didn't know any other wiser. My parents they didn't like put me in front of the television and say the television is your babysitter per se.
Right.
But they didn't know anything about anime, and I was watching things like Outlaw Star, and I was exposed to all this stuff. And I think the new generation of fans who are 15, 16, 17 have never really witnessed something like IBO before. No. And I don't think that and I think that's what it is partially, is that, they've grown up in a different world than I grew up in. I was in 3rd grade when 9/11 happened. And I think that that's part of the problem. And that's what I think IBO really hit, is this idea saying, look, this is what anime used to be like: good, dark, brooding, and there's real consequences. And we're not going to have panty and stockings with bright colors and ridiculous.
Well, there's a place for that. But it's just that No. But I'm seeing a lot less of IBO type shows than I am of more like, even in action shows like Excel World or Magi. They're bombastic, very, very outwards.
Let's talk about the other Gundam show you were in, which is Gundam.
Speaking of bombastic, speaking of light and colorful.
and look, Gundam Build Divers and Gundam Build Tri-Fighters and all those series, they're brilliant to the T, because what they've done is that they've created what you see. They've created a fun UC where every character and every person can show up, whether they're alive or dead, in Gundam Build whatever, and I think there's 4 seasons of it. I think you were in at least one of them.
I don't remember if did we have 2 seasons of the first? I know I did 1 full season, and then I came back later as a cameo.
And so what is this like? Because this is the complete opposite, but it has its place and it's brilliant. And I like the fact that you have all these Gundams from all these different shows, and you have new characters, but then you have references to other characters in there. And it's really paying so much tribute as a Gundam fan to a show that in a series that's been around for almost 50 years now.
Yeah. What was especially fun about that one is I actually got to pilot a Gundam in that one. There he is. Yeah, I was hoping Biscuit would get to be in the pilot seat at some point, but that never happened. So this was fun to actually say, hey, there's a Gundam that's, my own. I get the 00 Diver Ace. I am the pilot of 00 Diver Ace. And Gunpla is a thing. I have 2 really good friends that are huge into Gunpla. We play video games together all the time. They have so many model kits that they're always posting on our Discord group of like, look how I painted this one, or look at what I did to this one and how customized it is and stuff. I still haven't done a Gunpla kit yet, but this whole show about Gunpla was just them, like, both ears, like one on each ear, going, when are you going to buy a kit? When are you going to buy a kit? When are we going to do some Gunpla? So that was fun for me. I was like, okay, I actually have a Gundam that really means something to me personally, because otherwise it would be the paradox of choice. Do I get, the Gundam Wing, or do I get the Barbados, or neither of which I piloted? But this one, I do have a 00 Diver Ace kit at home that I bought. And I'm just waiting for the right time that we can all get together and put that together and kind of just method act, live the build divers. I really want a video game like that, like, Amiibo type build diver type deal.
No, I enjoyed it. It's on my list. I enjoyed the first 2 seasons of the entire Gundam Build, series. And I'm going to get to the next 2 because I just think that they are utterly brilliant. And I think that they're just paying so much tribute to so much Gundam, and as a huge Gundam fan, and I buy all the Blu-rays of Gundam, and like I'm super into it, and I'm broke because of it. That's where I'm at.
They ain't
So
cheap. They ain't cheap.
I mean, it's not. They've gotten cheaper. I mean, narrative is.
Well, yeah. I mean, people say, "Oh, anime's so expensive nowadays." They see these $120 Blu-ray box sets for the entire season. I'm just like, that is nothing. I remember going to freaking Suncoast as a kid, buying a $30 Dragon Ball Z VHS with only one audio track on it for 3 episodes. Like, we were paying $10 per episode. You're getting a 26 episode series for $120. I don't want to hear people talking about how anime is
expensive. I mean,
and I'm showing my age now. I'm going, back in my day.
No, I mean, you could buy Gundam Wing for like $45 on Amazon. Yeah. Seriously, the whole season. You can buy IBO for about $60 the entire
That season. Used to be $20-$25 for 3 episodes on a VHS, and you didn't get the dual track English or Japanese with subtitles. You just had the English dub, and that was it. You had no option.
Oh, I remember those days. I remember the days where a DVD came out, and it was a big deal when you had a DVD, and somebody's like, "Oh, I got an episode on a DVD."
I remember renting Sailor Moon and Blockbuster, and this is actually what got me into. This is actually kind of my awakening as an anime voice actor, as an anime what goes on both ends of things. I rented a Sailor Moon Blu-ray back in like middle school or high school. Put it in, and my house was always so loud, so I would often have the closed captions on or the subtitles on. And I noticed the subtitles weren't matching what the English track was saying. Yeah. I was like, what the heck is going on here? Sure enough, I switched it over to the Japanese. I'm just like, oh. And that became the whole, like, wait, there's a whole other side to this. Anime is from another country. That was really young.
Yeah, so. Speaking about Sailor Moon, because obviously I mentioned Fisheye before, and Fisheye. So yes. What is this like? Because there's a word, and it's slightly offensive. I'm going to say it anyway. Fisheye is a trap, everybody.
I'm not. I'm not going to go there, but Fisheye was very interesting for me because I grew up. Sailor Moon Supers was the first Sailor Moon that I watched on Toonami. I remember watching the old Deke dub on Toonami, and I thought that was one of my favorites because it was one of my first ones I was exposed to. So when I got the audition, I mean, I heard all my friends getting into Sailor Moon because we had 3 seasons before Supers, and I had a bunch of friends auditioning and getting into the cast. So it's like, hopefully when the 4th season rolls around, I want a shot at maybe the Amazon Trio or Pegasus. I don't know if I was excited to be a part of anything. And they gave me an audition for all 3 of the Amazon Trio and for Pegasus. And I got a call back for Fisheye and Pegasus. For Pegasus, they said, okay, it sounds really close to what we're going for. Can you just try it a little more this way? For Fisheye, can you just try it a little more this way? Inevitably, I got Fisheye. And what was interesting about that one is that I had no base of reference for even the Deke dub, because back then, Fisheye was portrayed as a woman. They didn't want to have a cross-dressing seducer.
Let's even talk about that, because obviously... and I think this is safe to say, back when Sailor Moon first came to America, there was a whole Americanization of anime. There's a whole, I guess, political agenda. And I don't know how we call it, where, they didn't want to, it's the same thing with, what was it, Neptune and Uranus.
Yeah. When they became cousins.
I guess those planets messed up and they were cousins or something like that. And then Crystal sort of fixed that, I think. And I mean, I think what wound up happening is that obviously I think people and society has become more progressive by nature. I also think there's been less of an idea saying we have to Americanize every little bit, for lack of a better word. I think that's the only way I think I can say it. And I think Crystal fixed that, and then obviously they wanted, I think, to stay truer to how it was intended. And so what was this like? Because now you're really playing the true version of Fisheye, if that makes any sense.
Yes, I'm the first I'm the first to play Fisheye as a male. Again, still debatable considering Fisheye is a homunculus, so I don't really know how gender affects that. But yeah, just this very androgynous character, but with a male-based voice, I guess. So I had a bit of trepidation going into that because, again, this would be the first time this was presented this way. Not because I was worried about people not accepting it being presented that way, but worried about if my presentation of it would do it justice, because this is a much truer form, a much truer translation of the source material.
Also the fact that you're coming into Sailor Moon. That has such a huge fan base.
Yes.
And it's kind of like, if you go into a show that everybody's kind of saying, oh, this show could go either way, it's a coin toss, there's probably less pressure because, you know what is, if maybe you miss the mark a little bit, there's not as much pressure. If a show only has 100,000 circulating mangas out there and isn't viewed as like the top shoujo and the bar, for lack of a better word, I think it's a fair statement on Sailor Moon. DBZ is the bar for shonen by nature. I think those two statements are very hard to argue against.
Yes.
So now you're coming into a show that is the bar. That is the level that every shoujo wants to meet or beat. And if you get past, I guess, the Sailor Moon test, for lack of a better word, you're in like the upper echelons. I don't think I'm saying anything controversial at the moment. And so, but even going into that, you also have to say, hey, I kind of just made it. Because now I've done a Sailor Moon character too, right? Like,
yeah,
again, it's kind of like if you have done, even if you've only done 10 episodes on DBZ, you've done 10 episodes on DBZ. It's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, I still want to. I'm hoping there's going to be more DBZ in the future because even though I wasn't a part of the major Pokemon franchise, I was in a couple of Pokemon products on their YouTube show, and so with Pokemon and Sailor Moon, if I can get into Dragon Ball Z, that'd be the trifecta of my childhood right there. That's my big three. People say the big three: One Piece, Naruto, and Bleach back in the Shonen Jump days, but no, the true big three: Pokemon, Dragon Ball Z, and Sailor Moon. At least for me. I'm old.
I'm 29. And let me ask you a question, because this is how I view things. Pokemon is still popular. Dragon Ball Z is still popular. Sailor Moon is still popular. One Piece has been going on for like 25 years now. Let's not pretend and say that One Piece isn't also like old, for lack of a better word. It's been going on since I think One Piece, the manga, came out in like 1999 or 1998.
That sounds about right.
It's not like that. This is what's crazy. My Hero Academia is a baby compared to One Piece, Dragon Ball Z, and Sailor Moon and Pokemon. It's a baby.
And I see it having the same kind of staying power, but there's just not going to be beating the big three. There's just, those things are not just in anime, but in mainstream. It's the
big four. I'm calling One Piece. It's the big four because at this stage, One Piece is in that upper echelon.
Yeah, but I would say, if you go to any non-anime fan, they're going to know the three. They're going to at least know the titles: Dragon Ball Z, Sailor Moon, and Pokemon. Even if they've never watched an anime in their life, I guarantee you'll find more people.
I guarantee you, LeBron James knows who Goku is, knows who Goku is, and knows who Sailor Moon is, and he knows who the Teen Titans are.
Yep. I'm also happy to see a lot of other athletes embrace that, especially in the wrestling world, trying to tie it there. I see a lot of wrestlers getting into anime like Sasha Banks you have
Kylie Ray. Kylie Ray comes out.
Smiley Kylie.
with a Pokemon on her chest. Let's and I don't mean that in any sexual way. Legitimately, it's like the face of a Pokemon is her gear.
Yep, pretty much.
I'm just saying, guys. Sasha Banks came out of Sailor Moon to the Royal Rumble. Come on. That's how we know that anime has made it.
Absolutely. And I would always say, I always say this, that anime and wrestling, the fans sat at the same lunch table. We all sat at the same lunch table the kids talking about WWE Raw on Tuesday morning or at the lunch table. We're sitting next to the kids trading Pokemon cards or playing Magic the Gathering or Yu-Gi-Oh or something. They were not with the jocks and cheerleaders. We all are nerdy over the same things, the same storytelling. And wrestling is anime. Anime is wrestling. Goku is just Ricky Dozon, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, what? Goku and Superman are John Cena.
Yeah,
that's exactly what it is. The Rock is Goku.
Well, I'll give a shout out to another YouTuber, Bennett the Sage, who does a lot of anime breakdowns, and he mentions how Goku is Ricky Dozon, who was this Japanese wrestler back in the 50s. His whole thing was he would bring a friend to the ring to face the villain du jour, the big bad of the day. The big bad would knock Ricky Dozon's friend pillar to post all across the ring until Ricky Dozon comes in and makes the save. Goku. That's just Goku. Goku sends the jobbers in. Go in, Krillin, go in, Tien, go job to Cell or Vegeta, and I'll come in and get the championship afterwards. That's how I see it. So yeah, I always say wrestling is anime and anime is wrestling because it's the same entertainment value.
You know the deal that the WWE Network and Crunchyroll made back like 4 or 5 years ago, where you got 3 months of WWE Network and 3 months of Crunchyroll for $30.
Yeah.
And guess what tag team was promoting it? The New Day.
The New Day, my boys. I love them.
It's just the way it is. But I do want to get away from Goku, and I do want to talk about Bow Hero here because I love the Bow Hero.
The Bow Hero, this guy.
He's not the Spear Hero. Okay, he's not the Spear Hero. I don't know how he got played, and this hasn't happened yet. But apparently, he gets played by Multi, which is probably season 3 of Rise of the Shield Hero. I have no idea how this guy got played. No idea. I mean, just look at him. Of all
I don't know either.
Played, he's the least I would put money on.
Oh man, I'm hoping we get a little bit more to do with him in the 3rd season because 2nd season he was just kind of spattered about.
I mean, his entire team freaking sold him out, man. You got to get new friends.
Yeah. Well, we were speaking about it. It's like a little bit of spoiler that hasn't been mentioned in the anime yet, but from what I hear from the source material, we were talking about My Hero Academia, and in Rising of the Shield Hero, every one of the heroes are isekai'd from a different world. Like they didn't share the same universe before they got isekai'd here. And from what I read about Itsuki, he's from a world where everybody gets a power or a quirk, and he was going to a school for people with these quirks.
He had a very low quirk at that.
Yeah, but essentially from what I'm gathering, they're saying that Itsuki is from the world of My Hero Academia before he got isekai'd here. That's what I'm gathering from what I read. And sure enough, in that world, they apparently have Spider-Man, or they don't have Spider-Man, because he says the line, "With great power comes great responsibility." And then the Shield hero has to look at him and go, "Did you get bitten by a radioactive spider or something?" But it's confusion. So he's from the world of My Hero Academia, which doesn't have Spider-Man. That's all I know about his backstory so far.
So to even talk about this, because obviously, I mean, he's a major character to some degree as far as being one of the 4 cardinal heroes. But he's also a supporting character. He also, to put it nicely, is kind of a dick. I mean, I mean, all the other 3 heroes are real, dicks in a lot of ways. But they're all different types of dicks.
It's the rising of the Shield hero, not the rising of the Bow hero.
It's not the redemption of the Bow hero, except he does get some redemption in the source material. But all jokes aside, what is this like to be part of this series? Because season 1 was one hell of a fucking season. I mean, it was amazing. And then the Bow hero has opportunities, and he has good opportunities, bad opportunities. Season 2 was sort of not about the Bow hero. There was a few moments, but the Bow hero really wasn't in it much. And then obviously I know we're getting a season 3. That's already been confirmed.
That's rare.
Anything.
Yeah.
And there's a good chance we're going to get a season 4 because it's just a great show. And there's just a lot of source material. I'm willing to put money, but I don't know anything, and I'm not going to force you to reveal anything if you don't want to. But I think it's a safe bet. But what is this like? Because this is another type of thing where it's just a major show you're a part of.
Yeah, I was really surprised because I got cast in it, I think, right before Crunchyroll made their announcement that it was coming out, that it was being dubbed. And when Crunchyroll made that announcement, I saw the hype for it go through the roof. I wasn't expecting that because I'm not so in tune with what's being released nowadays, with what manga is being read more so, or what light novels are popularized or are more popular than others. So to see the hype for this, and then people were already aware of it, I was excited. I was really happy to be a part of something that people were looking forward to. And then sure enough, yeah, the first season was a wild ride. And I was floored. By the end of it, we got an announcement for 2 additional seasons, because we were just talking about this earlier. You know, you don't really know how long a show is going to last. So I've been a part of a lot of shows that left on cliffhangers or never completed. So I was like, okay, this looks like a really fun fantasy isekai show. I'm really happy to be a part of it, and we'll see where it goes. I'm excited to see the hype behind it. And then it wasn't until like the end of the first season it really hit me, like when I saw that this was already announced for 2 additional seasons. It's rare to get even an additional season announced, but to have 2 announced right away, I was like, okay, there is something to this. This is
because I think what it comes down to, I think the first season blew out everything when it came out in 2019. I think it was one of the shows that blew out everything. And I watched the opening twice, the first episode twice. It was that good. And it was 45 minutes, and I'm like, man, they came out swinging for the fences here. I mean, that first episode of Rise of the Shield Hero came swinging for the fences, and they pulled nothing back.
No,
and the anime was saying, we don't care, and that's what I liked about the show, and that's what I really liked about the show, is that there's no punches pulled. And I think it's unlike IBO that doesn't pull any punches. I think that Rise of the Shield Hero does it in a, I don't want to say a more intellectual way, but does it in maybe a less offensive way, per se, and also a more intellectual way.
I'm going to need to rewatch it because I haven't actually watched it since the first season came out, and I haven't watched the second season. I wait till I get the Blu-rays of them and support the shows. But yeah, it had a really distinct feel to it. Really distinct tone that, we've been inundated with isekai shows and a lot of fish out of water type of scenarios. So this one, I thought it was really interesting to really focus in on the one character, not really have him be instantly isekai'd and have a group of friendly people around him, but be like, no, I gotta fend for my goddamn self here.
And also having to freaking figure out knowledge and have the other heroes hate him, have everybody hate him, have to win everybody over. Oh man, it's a brilliant show, and it's also the idea, not to ruin too much, but your character does get somewhat of a path of redemption. I've read the light novels.
Good. And, okay. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it because I'm waiting. I'm just like, he's kind of a dick.
But he gets a path of redemption, and there's some fun stuff, and I'm looking forward to the spear hero, because he's going to be fun. He's going to be a very funny character in season 3. That's all I'm going to say to everybody. If we go down that path, that's all I'm going to say on that point. But yeah, it's just a brilliant show, and it's just one of those things where I just think that it's like another thing where you're just like, this is what I mean about your career. That's so puzzling, is that, like, how did you even get here? Because I don't get your career. It's so confusing. And there's like 2 more roles that I'm very familiar with, which is, Demon Slayers as Obanyo
Iguro.
I've given up on names, man. I've given up on names a long time ago. And the other one, though, which I'm a big proponent of, is Kuroko's Basketball, and you're Kais. And I love Kais. I love Kais so much.
He was so much fun. He was such a snarky, snooty, like.
But let's talk about Kais first, because I love Kuroko's Basketball. I love sports animes. by definition. I do anime panels, and one of my favorite panels is talking about the 3 pillars of sports animes and their counterparts. So I compare Slam Dunk with Kuroko's basketball. And I loved everything about Kuroko's basketball. I thought Kuroko's basketball was the modern day Slam Dunk.
I appreciate that, and it's I really loved being a part of that one because it was I love Giguk on YouTube, and he had this great bit about how there are usually like 2 types of sports anime. There's like sports, oh my god, action sports, and then there's sports, the fan service sports, watch people in bikinis and muscly men. So Yuri on Ice and Free, that would be sports. But Kuroko was kind of a weird, like it had its moments in both. I felt where you had the big like action Dragon Ball Z sports, or like the Naruto Sharingan, I will use my special eyes on you kind of thing. And then like a very, also a very fun friendship story going on. With Kisei, I just had a blast because it was a very interesting character to have somebody in college who had all the confidence. You don't get this in anime a lot. A lot of anime is, people discovering themselves, and going through the journey of discovering themselves. In this sports anime that we did, a lot of them knew who they were from their time in high school together. And now that they were separate, they were trying to figure out who they were separately. So it was a really cool little dynamic there.
It's also really cool because with this character, he's beyond talented.
Yeah.
And all the 5, and even Kuroko is beyond talented. Kagami is also beyond talented. So these 7 players can all act like, they can talk the shit because they could back it up. And that's what makes him interesting, because it's hard to hate him as a character. Going back to the Bow Hero, he's a jerk, and you could hate him for being a jerk. With Kais, essentially, you cannot hate him for being a jerk because he can bring the ball down the court. It's like hating Michael Jordan, where if you're playing against Michael Jordan, you have to boo Michael Jordan because it's against your team, but you can't say Michael Jordan's a bad player, if that makes any sense.
Right,
You can't say Steph Curry's a bad player. You could say Steph Curry scored against us, son of a bitch. You know what I mean? Like, and so what is that like for you? Because that also changes, I would imagine, how you voice him.
Because again, he had this arrogance going, and he was this very pretty boy who his journey was losing confidence, or not just losing confidence, but gaining the right kind of confidence instead of projecting this bravado that he had all the time. And I kind of looked at him almost like a Jake Paul, or like a YouTuber, like a vlogger kind of person to start with. And I was like, you know what? If anybody I would want to see go on a journey of self-redemption and self-discovery, it would be somebody like Jake Paul or something. So let's sink our teeth into this and show, how it's done. So because he did have that, he had the throngs of fangirls and was just very like all about his influence and his like presentation and everything like that. So that was a fun way to go about it, and especially just him interacting with the other characters, being so standoff to them and then warming up to them later. It was something very different for me, honestly. And I enjoyed every minute of it.
And then obviously I want to talk about Demon Slayers, because that's another one. If you read the manga, you know what happens to your character. I'm not going to go and be the guy. But
between that and Seven Deadly Sins, I've already been spoiled on a lot of my character ahead of time, because I get manga readers at the conventions coming up. Like, especially with Gother, I had a bunch of manga readers come up to me going, "Oh, you voiced Gother, right?" I was only finished with the first season. I'm just like, "Yeah, I did." And they're like, "You're an a-hole. You're an a-hole for what you do." And I'm just like, I don't, what did I do? What did I? And then by the middle of the second season, I'm just like, oh yeah, that may have been warranted. That may have been justified.
But this character that you play, obviously the Serpent Snake, Demon Slayer is a fascinating character. It's very, very important. to the entire thing. And obviously does provide a lot of guidance, provides a lot of support, and really is, a cool character. And so what is this like? Because it's not a major role, but it's an important supporting role. And it's a relevant one. And I think this character comes in the first season. I know this character is in the second season.
Yeah. And in both seasons and in the movie, I'm pretty much in the last section, the last few minutes.
I don't remember the movie. Where
in the movie, I literally have one line as Igoro, and then they had me do a couple of other characters. But at the very end, it's just Igoro standing on top of a rooftop, looking at a sunset and going, "I don't believe it," and that's it. That was my one line for the movie. But no, I'm really excited for what we got ahead of us with this. It was such a shock to me to see the announcement of who I was all kind of running with in this Hashira group. Because, he comes in at the end of the first season. He has 1 or 2 episodes, a couple of scenes. He's in literally the last 5 minutes of the second season. That's pretty much all his appearances in the second season. But I do know there's a lot to do with him, and a lot of I know a little bit about where he's going with certain characters.
There's a lot of stuff that's going down, and again, I don't want. This is like the one time where I know what happens too.
Yeah.
And I don't want to ruin it because there's people that I know with Demon Slayer who have not read the manga or are waiting and they're watching the anime and they're trying to remain as spoilers. I figured with IBO, with Sailor Moon, those things have been out long enough, and also that fan base sort of knows what goes on. I think with Demon Slayers, and even with Rise of the Shielder, I think people get an idea where it's going. And we didn't ruin too much with it. But Demon Slayers is, I don't want to be the guy that ruins it. So you're not going to get a spoiler, but it's very cool. And obviously, they're staying pretty close to the manga.
I'm looking forward to what I have to do with him. And I had a lot of fun with just the voice and the character, because I've done a lot of sly characters before, a lot of rival, snarky. I've done, there was One Punch Man where I did Speed of Sound Sonic, who's very similar in tone, has this kind of snake-like hiss to him, as Igoro does. But then Igoro, I kind of made him even tougher than that. Speed of Sound Sonic is confident, but he's a comic character. He's a comic relief character, whereas Igoro is confident, but he is confident because he is a threat. He is actually got some skill to him. And I didn't know what it was going to be like, because, again, I only got the casting when the first season was about to finish. And he's only in the last few episodes. So I was thinking, okay, are we getting a second season? Am I going to have more to do in the second season? And, how big is this character? What am I going to want to research going forward? And then when I didn't really know anything about the manga or anything about the show, but when I saw who all the rest of the Hashira were, I was just like, oh no, we got some shit to do. Because I would see, I was cast alongside Crispin Freeman and Johnny Young Bosch and all these heavy hitters, and I'm just like, okay, I know we're all going to go on an arc.
Let me ask you a question about that, because obviously, if you don't know this by now, you voice alone in the booth. Maybe there's an engineer there. Obviously, the director's there. Maybe somebody from the, Bang Zoom or the Japanese side is there for whatever reason. Maybe, I don't know why somebody who's a higher up might be there, but not another voice actor is going to be there for the most part. It very rarely that does it happen. And when it does, it's for a very good reason. Now, but even when you get saying, oh man, I'm next to people who've been doing this forever and have all these top roles and have been in shows like Bleach and Code Geass and, and things like Attack on Titan and some other stuff, and you're like, and I'm not saying you're not at that level, but you're like, oh shit, you get this instant, I need to step up my game. Like, oh shit, I'm around people who've been doing this for the last 20 years or last 15 years who have legitimately brought shows and have brought them to the promised land, for lack of a better word. And you're like, oh shit, this is a big deal. I know nothing about it, but I also realize that there's some serious money here, or that there's no fucking around anymore.
I mean, yeah, and I never try to fuck around or anything. I'm always trying to bring my A game, but this one was definitely a very like, okay, I gotta really kind of keep focused on everything I've learned so far, and especially because the two names I mentioned, Johnny and Crispin, are two people who have seen me since the beginning. Like, I mean, they've seen who I was at the very beginning 12 years ago. Johnny was the host of that AX Idol competition, I remember. And he and I had met even a couple of times at conventions before then and had just a few small chats. I remember when I won the competition, when he announced my name, he was like, "Great job, Erik. Don't move to LA and steal my roles," or something to that line. And then when I did move to LA, I did take a couple of classes with Crispin. So, you know, these are two people that, like, Crispin taught me. So being in a scene with him is just like, well, shit, I gotta make sure I'm doing what he taught me. I gotta, you know.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So yeah, I took a couple of classes with Crispin. I've interacted with Johnny a number of times. So it was really interesting to be in the scene with them. And I've been in scenes with Johnny a number of times. You know, we were in Toradora together. We were in a Gundam IBO together. But just to kind of be in this group, this Hashira group of like standing side by side as opposed to like, you know, scene partners. It's weird, but it's a lot of fun, and it's really humbling. It's again, Johnny was one of my first the first actors I was a fan of after Trigun, and realizing he was a Power Ranger, which I grew up on. I watched the original run. That's how old I am. So it was just great to be amongst this group and in this kind of show, and just to hear the hype around the show as it was airing and people saying how it's changing kind of the way we look at action anime or stuff like that. Like, it's the new shonen big three kind of thing. It's a contender to be part of the same conversation as Bleach and Naruto. I'm hearing that. I don't know. Don't know if that's true, because I like the show, but I'm not really involved in the discourse of it. Still, yeah, I'm really excited for what this show has to offer and what's going to be coming with it.
And is season 3 coming out this year, or is it next year?
I believe later this year. They said the Swordsmaster Village arc maybe in fall or winter. So it will be within the next year.
Again, I haven't been keeping up. You know, I'm a little bit out of the loop on certain things. You know, yeah. and I can't know everything, guys. I'm sorry. I try to know everything. I just can't. Names and when animes are dropping is not really my jam. If it appears on Crunchyroll, I pick 4 or 5 shows and I watch them, and then I hope.
And like I said, so much anime is coming out here. I'm so ADHD that it's just I can't keep focused on one thing or the other anymore. I'm getting so many people saying, "Have you checked this show? Have you checked this show out?" And I'm like, I'll add it to the list that I'm never going to get through.
So I do want to back out of anime, and you are a professional wrestler, and
in the loose term, yes.
And I know that you trained and worked for Brian Kendrick's school out there, but I don't want to dive too much into your career because I'm a little unfamiliar with your career. I just know that you take out people sometimes in the ring. And you did have a championship for a short day.
I did a nice little tag team championships. Yeah. So I trained with Brian Kendrick, started a few years ago. Great guy. He's been so gracious about how he's taught us and the opportunities he's offered us. And he would run this monthly comedy show called Wrestling Pro Wrestling, or he still does to this day. And it's twice the wrestling, twice the fun, because it's twice the wrestling. Wrestling Pro Wrestling. And we would do stupid shit. Like I remember one of my first matches was a Royal Rumble where a butcher came out, a baker came out, and I was the candlestick maker. So,
but isn't that what wrestling's supposed to be? Like, yeah, like that's the whole thing about Orange Cassidy, right? Orange Cassidy is brilliant.
I love Orange Cassidy.
Orange Cassidy is just, he's like the anti-wrestler. It's like Curryman, right? You know who Curryman is?
Yep.
Man's brilliant. You know, it's just funny. It's like shoot, I forget the Japanese comedic wrestler who wears the mask with like the big ears, and he's great. Like
There's been a couple. I mean, I don't think he was a comedic. He did a lot of stuff, but Jushin Liger or
Jushin Liger is one of them. But Jushin is an amazing wrestler.
yeah, he
I
is.
think it's like Kumito or I forget his name.
I haven't been in touch with the Japanese scene for a while.
The guy wrestles a lot, but that's what wrestling is, right? And
Yeah.
then obviously, you know, Brian Kendrick is just a fantastic wrestler. I mean, him with Paul London as the SmackDown Tag Team Champs,
And he was interim WWE champ for a minute too.
What would you say?
Brian Kendrick was interim WWE champion for a minute too, for a hot minute during this hot swap like Rumble match they had. I remember he held the belt and was crowned champion for 1 minute.
That's kind of funny. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
But even then, he went to Impact, and I thought he was brilliant with his interactions with Eric Bischoff.
Yes.
In Impact as Spanky, and then I mean, I could say Spanky, right?
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. It still makes me laugh. This is the mind of Brian Kendrick, because he was trained by, you know, William Regal and Shawn Michaels and all these. He was trained in the same class as Bryan Danielson, but he just loves the outlandishness that wrestling can offer, because wrestling doesn't have to be this straight-faced, you know, presenting this as kayfabe, but there can be comedy, there can be drama, there can be different genres of it, just like you see different genres of movies. So yeah, he's got a really crazy mind for this kind of humor. It's very like Adult Swim. I see his kind of mind as like the kind of mind would be behind the shows of Adult Swim.
And then I enjoyed his run as cruiserweight too.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was him at his best.
That was really, really cool, because I was training with him at that time, and I was actually training with him before he got the call to go back to WWE for the Cruiserweight Classic. And then, sure enough, after training wrapped up, he went back and got to see him employ all these things he's been teaching us, and then pull out a fucking burning hammer on Kota Ibushi in the middle of the tournament. So the one and only time we'll ever see a burning hammer in WWE ground.
And what is that like? Because obviously, one of the things is that, as you said, I think voice acting and wrestling and comics and all this stuff in cosplay obviously is all mixed up, and they're all cousins or they're second cousins removed, something of that nature. I mean, I think some things are closer than others, right? So in this D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, is very close to certain aspects of anime, but I don't think that it's. I think it's like a step or two removed. It's not like right next to it. But what is this like for you? Because obviously, what you're learning on a physical level, I don't think that you're going to be suplexing somebody in a booth anytime soon. But
not anytime soon. But I'm not going to count it out.
But I think some of the promo stuff that I would imagine that was training is utilized and also gives you perspective, and also and I don't know how much they teach you about the business of wrestling per se, but even that I think also gives you some inclination, because my understanding of voice acting is that, and same thing with wrestlers, is that a lot of the time you're an independent contractor.
Yes. Yeah, and that's where the business really crosses over, is because in both wrestling and voiceover, you have to know your brand that sets yourself apart. You have to be very confident with your brand, and you are you're the brand owner. You are the product, the marketer, the entrepreneur, your human resources, you're everything for this brand that is you. And it's a lot of the same things, you know, trying to put yourself out there, get the right connections, make sure, you know, you're taking care of yourself and not short selling yourself, but also making sure you're keeping yourself available to work and being ready for whenever the opportunity strikes, not just waiting for the opportunity, but constantly preparing for that opportunity to come. So I see a lot of the crossover in that, both voiceover and wrestling, when it comes to the business side of things. And when it comes to the presentation, again, I see it as the same entertainment value. You get these big feuds and rivalries that are built up over time for this giant climactic payoff that is told both through words and promos, but mostly in the ring through action. Like they're telling a story with their bodies and getting the audience invested through these subtle psychological techniques and awareness of like, okay, the audience is dying, so let's pick it up, or let's give them some hope. Or they're really masters of this improvisational structure, this story structure that they go in. And again, it's not like, you know, everybody says, oh, wrestling's fake. It's like, yeah, well, so's a magic show, so's Game of Thrones, so's, you know, what is that? Why does it make it any less entertaining? In fact, knowing it's fake is actually more entertaining for me, because I get to appreciate what they're putting together, this choreography stunt show, essentially. And you know, making it so it's engaging for an audience, and got these high spots that, I mean, I'm not going to be one to say everything needs high spots, because it's getting a little dangerous nowadays.
So I forget, it was Malachi Black versus Davey Richards.
Yes.
I forgot, on IWTV, and it was at like 1 a.m. It was insane, and it was like chain wrestling for like 15 minutes straight between the two of them, and the crowd was just going ballistic. It was amazing. There was like no high spots in that entire match. And it was crazy.
You can tell a great story with just the basics. You just got to tell the story. You can't just be in there wanting to do the moves. You got to make them connect and really kind of.
It was beyond. It was like one of the greatest matches I've ever seen.
I'll have to look that one out. Yeah, I heard about that one. I still have to watch it.
That entire show was crazy. You had, I think, Alex Shelley with Filthy Tom Lawler, and you had Dalton Castle. Was the three of them were in a match together, and that was crazy.
Oh.
and then the way Alex Shelley was just baiting all of them, and he was like saying to Tom,
and that's the gloriousness of it. I love being a heel. I love being a face. It's whether I'm cheered or booed, getting a reaction from the audience is just so invigorating. I missed that live. Again, I did theater throughout high school and college, so that live performance aspect is what I really missed when I started going into wrestling. I was just doing voiceover work. I'm like, I need to get my body out there and just like do something with it.
And isn't it crazy how that all happens, right?
Yeah. I never thought that I would have fallen. I never thought I would have done this. I always wanted to. As a kid, I loved wrestling. I never thought that I would just someday be like, fuck it. Where are my boots? I'm getting in the ring.
So to even go into that, because obviously you're a voice actor and you're doing wrestling, and so how does that work for you? In which that, I mean, is to me, you're hitting like two niches, and I'm curious, like,
my goal is to cross them over.
What?
My goal is to cross over the niches, is to, again, hashtag wrestling is anime, hashtag anime is wrestling, is to show both fandoms that there is something to love on the other side that they may not be aware of. And if I can bring myself to it, because right now I'm doing a very comedic character. For Wrestling Pro Wrestling, I wrestle as the sassy assassin, Sylvester Silverstein from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. And he was tag team champions with his tag team partner, Sneaky Pete. We are the Sneaky Snakes, and now we have a third person who joined Sneaky Incorporated, Sacre Bleu, the cat burglar. So this is kind of silly shit we do, but someday you're going to see not the sassy assassin. You're not going to see, you know, some other name I come up with. You're going to see Erik Kimerer in the ring. You're going to see the voice actor in the ring, because that's the story I want to tell that I don't think's been told in wrestling yet. The anime voice actor showing that he can make the ring his microphone and his body his voice, and tell the story that way. So yeah, someday I hope to go to Japan and be like the heel American voice actor. Just be like, I take all of your voices, I erase them, I make them my own.
Oh, I got your tagline right here. Slightly offensive. The voice of the gaijin.
The voice of the gaijin. That might work.
Come on, tell me in Japan.
That would work. That would be that would nuclear heat.
That would be so heel oriented. Oh man.
I don't know if I would be, you know, Bullet Club contender for that, but
or better yet, after you pull that off, then you could be that I've renounced my gaijin status, and now I'm the voice of the Bullet Club. And there you go.
Yeah,
I got the entire thing planned for you.
That'd be a dream come true, but I gotta aim within my means. Right now, we're just trying to get pro wrestling to get a bit more of a following. We've got some plans for that.
So obviously, you got that going on, and SummerSlam is right around the corner. And so I am curious. I got a few wrestling questions. What do you think is going on with Sasha? Because this is, and let me preface this. She is charging on the con scene for conventions $30K to make non-wrestling appearances at conventions. That's her guarantee, which I think she's partially worth it. I also think that it's a little pricey. I mean, that's not per autograph.
Right.
That's guarantee. For the guarantee for the con. And if you don't know how the guarantee works, that basically means that every autograph she sells counts against her guarantee. So if she sells $40K, she makes $40K. If she only sells 20, the con makes up the
rest of $10K. Yeah, no, I'm fully aware of how.
I'm explaining to my audience.
Yeah. Sorry, but no, that is a pretty high guarantee. But again, I think if anybody were to clear $30K, she would be it. She's got that star power. She's got that. That appeal.
I don't have a problem with that. I think that I think she'll clear it. I don't know how further much she'll clear it over. Given the state of the economy and a variety of other issues, and also the fact that there's 15 other people at a con, and you go to a con, there's only so much money, and I don't know if she's gonna clear it. But I'm also a capitalist, so if she pulls in 50, I'm rooting for her. Is my point. But do you think that she's going to AEW, or do you think that this is all just her taking a break from wrestling and then she's going to go back to WWE, or do you think that she's going to say, hey, maybe I want to take a few years off and maybe have a kid? Because, I mean, and I'm not trying to, say she should do any of those three things. If she doesn't want to, or she says, maybe I'm done with wrestling. I don't know. I'm curious what you think.
I honestly have no thoughts on this other than, I mean, I don't know Sasha, so whatever happens and whatever's happening, only she knows the absolute truth, and I can't really pretend to speculate on things. There was one thing that happened early on in my training. I read a bunch of dirt sheets and kept up with a lot of the wrestling news and the wrestling rumors and stuff like that. And I brought one of the questions to my coach. I was like, hey, do you think this is happening? And his words to me were like, don't be a fucking mark. Don't read the dirt sheets. And ever since then, I was like, okay, fine. And so I don't trust anything that's going on unless it's confirmed from the horse's mouth. And there's been so much speculation and rumors about and backtracking of what the status is with Sasha. So I can't pretend to know. I don't know this. I don't know the story of what happened. I don't know the story of. I don't know how the fucking thing operates or what their contracts are like. I can hope I would see her in AEW because I'm much more of a fan of the AEW product, and I'm a fan of hers, and I want to see. I
mean, I'll be very honest. Where I want to see her, and I think she'll do better in Impact. I think
Impact would be good.
Wrestling has somebody like Masha Slamovich. Come on, Masha versus Sasha, Masha versus Havoc. Sasha versus Havoc. Rosemary, Taya Valkyrie versus Sasha Banks. Come on.
There would be some great matchups in there.
That's all I'm going to say. Yeah. That's what I want.
I do want to see Sasha versus Jade Cargill, though. I think that'd be a great match.
Who?
Sasha versus Jade Cargill in AEW.
That could be interesting. There could be a lot of good stuff that happens in that, but I digress. And I am curious about SummerSlam. Roman or Brock or Theory?
I'm going to go Roman. I'm just going to go Roman. I mean, that seems to be what this whole thing has been built on. I mean, obviously they haven't built anybody to dethrone him. So the only person that can dethrone him is Brock. So I still think that there's a chance for that. But if they're building this as the last match between them, then if Brock wins, there's obviously going to have to be a rematch. So it's a mess of.
So where do you think Austin Theory fits into all this?
I don't know, because again, I haven't been watching a lot of WWE, so I'm not
I mean,
really sold on
he
his
obviously
product.
he's Mr. Money in the Bank, right?
Yeah. I know his whole shtick, and I know his whole, he's Mr. McMahon's chosen one, the second coming of John Cena, essentially. I just don't know exactly if what I was talking about with one of my coaches, with my assistant coach Brandon, with Brian's assistant coach Brandon. We're talking about how they kind of hotshot the whole Liv Tyler Money in the Bank thing on Ronda, and didn't really have a lot of story to it. It was just kind of a real hotshot. They didn't really build up to her cashing in. So that's something we would have liked to have seen. With Theory, I don't know. Again, I haven't been watching the past couple of weeks, so I don't know what his story is with the Money in the Bank, how he's been presenting himself as it, if he's issued any challenges or threats or any kind of chase. But my sincerest hope is they do not try to replay the Seth Rollins shtick. That they do not try to replay that. They do not try to redo the heist of the century from that WrestleMania when Seth Rollins comes in and makes it a triple threat and wins. I really hope they're smart enough not to do the exact same thing twice.
Yeah, I don't know what they're gonna do. I think that it could make some sense for him to cash in, but I also think that you know what it is? I think that it'd be fun if he just teased Roman for a good 6 months. And
Again, build the story on it. Build the anticipation of when they're going to cash in, rather than hot swap the title.
I would love it if he just pokes and he comes out in the middle of the match, and then he goes back when like Brock's at 8, and then Brock gets up and he just goes back to the back, or he comes up with commentary. Come on, if he's doing commentary and then he's thinking about doing when he doesn't, that'd be great. It'd be so good.
That'd be new. That'd be a new way to do it.
But he doesn't cash in. He's just teasing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but still, like, just to have that, I don't think I've seen that before with a Mr. Money in the Bank, where they're on commentary holding the briefcase, like leaning in and leaning back and kind of doing this whole, do I not?
He takes off and he's going to hand and he said, no, not right now.
Yeah.
And then he goes right to the representative, forget, and then he goes to the back, and then he comes back out. Like,
I think that'd be brilliant. I think if they did that, that would be brilliant.
And then Vince McMahon might come out. Oh, it'd be brilliant. And then he's like, "Should you do it? Oh, it'd be so much fun to do it." But I digress. These. I mean, we're gonna find out what's gonna happen. But there has to be some teasing that has to happen. There has to be. Is all I want. And then because I love Austin Theory as a teaser, and I think that guy is just funny and he knows how to poke a bear. But we can only want nice things, and I don't know what's going to happen with Liv, but I hope Liv beats Ronda. That's what I hope for.
I hope so too. I think it's her time.
I have a nice, Liv Morgan Refractor Tom Finest card that I bought for like 50 cents. It's worth like $6 on eBay. I'm very happy with my investment.
Nice.
but I digress on that front. And obviously I do want to talk about a few things and then I'm going to give you a chance to self-promote. So we've been talking for a while. I am curious where you see anime cons going, because obviously we've gone through the entire COVID era, and there has been a shift in things, and things are coming back, but also things have evolved in a lot of ways, where there's a lot of virtual meet and greets now. There's a lot of platforms where if I want a print of something or I want a Pop Funko of something signed, there are many ways how to get it. And also there's a lot of ways how to get it that are legit. And I say this because I'm a collector and I also resell things, and these things have value. And so how do you feel about all this stuff? Because, it's cool to go to a con, but also sometimes I just want an autograph of a character on their Pop Funko, and you're in California, I'm in Connecticut. No offense, the likelihood of you and me meeting is slimmer than me meeting somebody who is closer to where I'm at.
Right, exactly.
Unless you're coming, unless you tour the country, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I mean,
I'm always down for any con. So anytime a con invites me, I'm there in a heartbeat. I love the environment of cons. I went to them before I was a voice actor, and I remember being on the other side of the table, and it was much more than just getting the autograph. It was the experience of like meeting the person that really meant a lot to me. And I don't think that feeling is going away anytime soon. I think there's still a lot of people that look for that experience, a chance to really like have a one-on-one interaction. And yeah, we do have a lot of these other platforms for autographs and virtual meet and greets, but it's so controlled. And again, I just love the environment, the energy of people at a convention. So I don't think that's bound to go anywhere anytime soon. I think, yeah, those that it does matter just to get the autograph, they have those avenues now, and I'm really happy that they have those opportunities rather than having to do something they really wouldn't care about, like going out in public in a crowded area, if that wasn't something up there they were suited for.
Even for me, it's just the idea that if I want, an autograph, Aaron Yeager,
Yeah.
Funko, Bryce is in California. It has nothing.
Yeah.
I go to cons on the East Coast. I'm not going to San Diego Comic Con
Exactly,
because it doesn't make any economic sense. But ConnectiCon was last week, or so I didn't go to ConnectiCon right now because I'm just super busy on my own personal life. But the idea is that that's 35 miles away. There's a big difference between me traveling 35 miles and 3,000.
Yeah, but again, like, if there is anybody that you would like to see, I always say this to anybody, and this is a general you to anybody watching. If there's anybody you would like to meet, it's it never hurts to go to your local convention's website and send an email to their guest relations, sending just a simple, humble request saying, "Hey, I'd like for you to consider inviting this person out." Because again, I love doing conventions. I will go anytime I'm invited, anywhere. I love traveling. I love meeting people. I love meeting fellow fans of anime because I'm not, again, I was on the other side of the table at one point, the autograph table, and I still consider myself there in a lot of respects. I mean, when I'm there signing, to me, that's part of the job, but then I get to have the fun, which is the fun that everybody else there is having, because I'm just a weeb myself.
And then obviously there's a million other things I could ask you. Obviously, I think Brock's gonna win, but we can't be friends anymore. But that's okay. All jokes aside, obviously you've been speaking for a while, so I do want to give you a chance to promote yourself. So where can people bother you? Where could people hit you up? Where could people find you, follow you on social media? Know where you're going to a con? Where can people, recommend, and what cons do you want to be recommended to, or is everything fair game per se when they reach out to their local, say, hey, I want to see Erik Kimerer at this con and all that fun stuff and all that stuff, and where can people pick up prints and other things, because not everybody you can't go to every con.
Yeah.
People really do appreciate a lot of, swag, for lack of a better word.
Yeah. Well, for prints and everything, you can go to Streamily or Color World Books, I believe, Color World Books. And both of them have shops set up. I still am expanding on them, and my Streamily, I think I need to reestablish. But I've got prints for sale on them, all autographed. Even on Color World Books, you can book a 5-minute, 10-minute or so hangout, one-on-one, that we can do over StreamYard or what have you. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at ekimerer, Kimerer, just my first initial and last name. And I also stream pretty regularly on Twitch. Pretty much right now, my schedules are Mondays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays in the evenings. And I'm streaming a bunch of games like Destiny 2. I've been going through the Yakuza games, and my girlfriend and I are about to start up Final Fantasy 14 because we are hugely deep into that game. There's no escape. We're trapped. We're trapped in Eorzea. But yeah, you can follow me on those sites. Like I said, Streamily is a good place to get some prints. And as far as any conventions, I'm game for anything. Again, I love traveling. I love going to to different states. I haven't been out of the country for a convention yet. I'd love to do that. So anybody in Australia, London, maybe, or Ireland, if you guys want to recommend me. But any convention, I've been a lot across the East Coast, from Georgia to New York. I've been to Colorado here in the West Side. I've been to SakuraCon, my home state. I would love to go back there at some point, but just any convention. If you guys want to see me, meet me, please put in a recommendation. I hope they will consider me, and I hope I get a chance to meet you guys, because this is everything I've wanted to do ever since I first stepped foot in a convention myself. Just trying to make my younger self as jealous as possible.
Yeah, and I'm just going to say this. You have to support indie content creators, and voice actors and actresses are indie content creators. And the way you do that is in a bunch of ways. Obviously, if they have shops, if they're selling prints, hangouts, if they have buy me a coffees, if they have things on Twitch, obviously throwing them a few monies, shekels, dollars, it goes a long way.
But I mean, aside from the monetary side of things, the best way I think you can just support me is just engaging, interacting. Just reach out to me on Twitch or Instagram or Twitter and just say hi. If you got any questions, that's always the best way.
Even going further, and I've said this before about this show as well, is that honestly, I like likes. I like follows on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Bother me on TikTok. Bother him on TikTok if you have a TikTok. Or
I don't. I'm not.
Twitter, or a Snapchat or Twitch, and following, because social media is free. And so obviously Instagram matters, Facebook matters, Twitch matters, all that stuff matters. And following doesn't cost anything. And clicking the like button, the heart button, the thumbs up button, leaving a comment, said, hey, really enjoyed the stream. It goes a long way. And I've been there, and I'm sure you've been there, where someone's like, hey, I just had a really bad day, heard your voice in this, man, really made me feel better. You killed it in that anime. And, I appreciate when people throw me money for this show, and I appreciate when people say, hey, because what is, at the end of the day, to do this show, it's not cheap. But at the same time, I also appreciate when somebody says, hey, I really enjoyed that interview you did with that person. I grew up watching that person, or I saw that person, and they're in my favorite show. And that was a great interview, man. Because it means something, and it goes a long way. And you know what is, sometimes in life, and it sounds weird, but money's great. But also when somebody just says, hey, you did a killer interview. I really appreciate that interview you did. It goes a long way, is all I'm going to say. It makes me feel special. And it makes me feel like, hey, people actually appreciate what I'm doing, and that's the thing. I would imagine you feel the same way when somebody.
That's the support that matters to me, is not, again, anything monetary or anything like that. I mean, I have to sell prints at conventions, and I still feel a little squingy about that, because I'm happy to just sign anything, really. I'm happy to make it a good interaction for somebody, because they obviously came out here. They already paid a bunch of money to come out here and do this. I'm not the one who wants to be like, oh, give me more money for this experience. I want to be able to provide that experience. But a lot of times I actually am forced to sell.
It's very complicated, and it's a tricky line, even for me. Not to get too deep into it. Like, I ran a Kickstarter, and we were speaking about it before, and I'm very honest about it. I don't want to have to run a Kickstarter, and I don't want to have to raise money. I hate having to do that. And I wish somebody would say, hey, you need $1,000. I'll just give you $1,000 because I'm helping you out. And that's what you need for all your bills. Because I'm not looking to make millions of dollars doing this. I'm looking just to stay afloat. And I'm looking to get my bills down by 40 to 50%, where I don't mind having skin in the game. But my bills are about $800 a year. So if I could get $400, that means that I can find $400 elsewhere, but it just eases up tension, and it allows stress to be relieved. And that's my whole thing in life, because this is not my day job at all.
Yeah. No, it's a process. It's a process getting there. But again, the best support that you can offer is just, again, engaging, just letting people know that, that you liked hearing us. If you want to hear us more in anime, say that out, because it really does matter to a lot of the clients. They are scouring Instagram and Twitter. A lot of the casting directors are keeping an eye on, who's being talked about. And again, I don't want to be like, people should talk about me. People should tell me how great I'm just saying, if you did like what I did and you do want to see me in more, if those two criteria match up, then that's probably the best way you can help.
Yeah, and I'm gonna just quickly promote myself. Obviously, all my social media is Pop Anime Comics. On Twitter, Pop Anime Comics. On Instagram, Pop Anime Comics. On Facebook, I got a lot of content, everybody. I got almost 500 interviews in like 3 years on Facebook. So I got a lot of content every day during the week, through Monday through Friday at 12 p.m. on YouTube. I release an interview from earlier this year, and so obviously that's cycled out. I have like another 50 before I get to you that I have to release. So
wow.
So your interview is going to be shot out in October, more or less, possibly.
Okay.
But obviously, I appreciate people checking out all my content, subscribing on YouTube. It's Pop Anime Comics. This show and my other show, Pop Anime Comics Lounge, are fusing together.
I'm trying to point to the name. Yeah, Pop Anime Comics. There it is.
Yeah. It's down below, everybody. It's down below. I didn't know what you were doing. I was a little concerned.
I was like, where am I pointing? Which I'm mirrored right now, so I don't have
it's just
orientation.
Down. It's just down.
Yeah.
But and obviously I have Buy Me a Coffee if you want to support this show. If you want advertising services like live reads, if you want to buy the back banner, that's for sale. That's my friend's comic. He didn't pay me. I just like his book and I want it to win because it's an awesome book. It's like Robotech, just better. And those are covers that are actually not out yet. So that's a first appearance. But if somebody wants to buy that, we could talk about it. If you want advertising services, we could talk about it. More than happy. If you want to pretty much sell anything you want to sell on my show, you could talk about it. All that fun stuff. I'm open to selling everything and anything. I have an eBay store. You can check that out, Pop Anime Comics Collectibles. And October 5th, my full class of comic book investing, the fundamentals, is being released. And I am starting a locals channel that is behind a paywall along with a Substack to actually release the entire class before it's fully out on Udemy in pieces. That's a cheaper option. So if you want to learn how to buy and sell comics, you can take my class and I'll have more information on all of that. Again, I'm just giving you the option of Substack or locals, depending on how you want to pay. They're going to be the same price. So, yeah, there you go. They are going to be behind a paywall. I am eyeing it, I think, around $5, maybe $7. So a month on those two platforms, and I'm eyeing it about $50 on Udemy. It is cheaper, but you're paying more upfront. And also moving forward, I'm building out substantial classes that will always be out first on locals and Substack before they get over to Udemy. So, along with bonus articles and some other content. So that's my area of expertise, and I like making money with comics. So
busy.
This is how it's not even. It's like my other side job. Hey, I like money. What can I say? But enough of that.
Side jobs. Also, just one last plug: Watch Wrestling Pro Wrestling on Twitch. You guys can catch it at twitch.tv/wrestlingpw. And our next show is going to be August 27th in Burbank, California, at the Burbank Moose Lodge, which will be airing on Twitch the following Thursday. So keep an eye out for the Sassy Assassin, his partner Sneaky Pete, and Sacre Bleu, and maybe the Sneaky Snakes will make an appearance.
And then I'm just going to give you the final word.
Well, thank you very much for having me on this one. Thank you for giving me a chance to tell all these stories. I'm always ecstatic to be able to give a little peek behind the scenes of things, because it's also fascinating to me. It's also like I always love peeking behind the curtain, and with the accessibility we have nowadays of the internet and all the YouTube shows and interviews we have, a lot more people are becoming aware of what is going on and kind of getting inspired themselves to go into it. So I'm just going to end this by saying, if you guys want to become voice actors, I wish all the power to you and all the support to you. If there's a will, there's a way. And I guarantee, don't think about, well, my voice, is it suited? No, there's a place for you in this industry, as long as you're willing to put in the work and make the right moves. There's a place for you. So just one last thing I always love to end on. Two last things I love to end on. Number one, love the art in yourself and not yourself in the art. So don't go chasing fame. Don't go chasing, I need to be in anime. Love, if you want to be a voice actor or an actor or an artist of any kind, love that it's the art in you that you want to bring out. And finally, I always say this at the end of my streams because I am a huge wrestling nerd. Take care, be well, and as always, stay sweet. Boom.
And that, everybody, is a wrap.